Hello students, welcome to my presentation. My name is Rosalia Malundilange and I'm taking you through Quantitative Method 1. This is a certificate level, year 1. My contacts are on the screen for further questions regarding the module. We are starting with linear equations. Linear equations are equations with one unknown variable and the power of the unknown is equals to 1. How do we solve the linear equations? We have to collect like terms on one side and then the constants on one side and then solve for the unknown, and make sure if you substitute the unknown in the original equation, you are going to find the same answer as on the right hand side. Okay, I want to explain in deep on how to solve quadratic equations. Quadratic equations are equations with the power of an unknown being equals to 2. A, B, and C are constants, and A can never be equals to 0. Now, the general form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. A, B, and C can be known, and then x is the unknown variable, and then this a can never be 0. If it becomes 0, this part goes, and this part is the one that brings in the quad in the equation, and then it becomes a linear equation, no longer quadratic equation. But b can be 0, c can be 0, as long as a to the power x squared is there, is still a quadratic equation. Now in your case, certificate level, you can only solve the quadratic equation using the two methods, factorization and using quadratic formula. Now when you are using factorization, you have two cases: when a is equals to 1 and also when a is greater than 1. When a is equals to 1, we look for the factors of c as explained on the screen, and then you pick two factors. When you multiply them, of course you get c, but when you add or subtract, you should get what? You should get b. And this is the example that I've explained in details. We are going to replace 3x with 1, multiply 1 and 4. How can we get 3 from 1 and 4? Only by subtracting 1 from 4. If you minus 1 from 4, you are going to get 3. So if you put x in front of 4 and x in front of 1, then 4x minus 1x will give you 3x. So instead of writing 3x as shown on the screen, you are going to write it as 4x minus x, and then you factorize by grouping. To factorize means you are taking out common terms that are common to two things and then see what is remaining, and then when you do that, you are going to get to the solution of negative 1, of 0 and 1, and those are the only roots. If you substitute them in the original equation, that will give you it will give you 0. Now let's look at the second example here. Let's go through step by step. We have x to the power of 2 minus 3x minus 10, which is equals to 0. Okay, the rule says find the factors of c, which is 10. The factors of c is only 1 multiplied by 10 and 2 multiplied by 5. There's not any other two numbers you multiply and they will give you 10. Okay, but which of the two numbers multiplied to give you 10 can give you 3 is 2 and 5. If you say 2 minus 5 will give you minus 3. Okay, so the 5 which you got as a positive, you will have to make it negative for you to get the result of negative 3. Why do you want to get negative 3? As shown on the screen there, just in the first line, 3 is negative. So we are going to replace that negative 3 with these two terms. We are just going to add x, add x, and this is the 3x that we are talking about in the first equation. So our equation is going to end up with x to the power of 2 plus 2x minus 5x minus 10, which is equals to 0. This one has replaced the minus 3x in the original. Why are we doing that? Is because we want to solve by grouping. Now we can group these two together and also group these two together and factorize. If we look at these two here, what is common to both of them is x. So if you take out 1x from this x to the power of 2, there will only be 1x remaining. Take out x, that is with 2x, what will be remaining is only 2. Okay? Now, if you open up the bracket, you are going to get back to that. We go to the second bracket. What is common to both these two terms, before I put on the bracket, is minus 5. You can get minus 5 from these two. If you take out minus 5 from this term, you are only going to remain with x. If you take out minus 10 from this, taking out, I don't mean you subtract, it means you are dividing. So my negative 10 divided by negative 5, you are going to get what? A positive 2. And you can see that this bracket and that bracket is the same. You factor it out. Factor it out means represent it once. You are going to have x plus 2 there, but what is remaining when you have taken out or factor out that and factor out that? You are remaining with x minus 5, and that is equals to 0. Now if you are saying you are multiplying two numbers and they will give you 0, it means it's either this number or that number which is equals to 0. So we continue by saying it's either x plus 2, which is equals to 0, or it's maybe x minus 5, which is equals to 0. So if you solve for x here, x will be equals to minus 2. If you solve for x here, x will be equals to 5. Okay? And those are the only two roots that if you substitute them in the original equation, it will give you 0. No other numbers. You will substitute where x is in the original equation and will give you 0. Now when it comes to the other scenario where a is greater than 1, in the first step, I was supposed to type find the factors of AC. Not C, but in the first step, it should be AC. You multiply A by C. Now you pick two factors of AC, multiply them together, you should get AC, but if you add or subtract, you should get B. Then you replace B with the two factors that you have done, and now we go back, it's almost the same as the first example that we did. But now remember here, you are looking for the factors of AC, not C. Okay? Look at the example, the A is 6. C is 6. So 6 multiplied by 6 is 36. So we are looking for the factors of 36. Now we pick one pair that if you add or subtract, it will give you 5. It's only 9 and 4 that will give you 5. 3 and 12 cannot give you 5. 12 and 18 cannot give you 5. 1 and 32 cannot give you 5. 6 and 6 cannot give you 5. But 9 and 4 can give you 5. By saying 9 minus 4 will give you a positive 5. Now we are going to replace the 5x with the 9x minus 5x as shown on the screen. Then you can go through the steps on how to factorize, take out terms that are common to one another, and then at the end of the day you will see that the brackets will always be the same. If they are not the same, then it's either you have done something wrong or the equation cannot be factorized. And then you see that you end up with the answer of minus 3 over 2 and 2 over 3. Do not leave those answers in decimals. It's better to leave them in the fraction form. How do we use the quadratic formula? The quadratic formula is given as minus b plus or minus b square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, now in this example that we have, 6x to the power of 2 plus 5x minus 6 is equals to 0. A is equals to 6, b is equals to 5, C is equals to minus 6. Now you have to substitute. In place of B, put 5, in place of A, put 6, and in place of C, you are going to put minus 6. Be very careful with the signs. If you change the signs, then everything is going to be wrong. And then most of the students make mistake when B is a negative, and then you are going to write just the negative of the formula. If B is negative, then you are going to have negative negative that will turn into a positive. Now first you should solve the square root. Now if in the square root you get a negative number, it means you might have done something wrong, or that equation cannot be solved using the quadratic formula. At your stage, you cannot solve a square root of a negative number, but at advanced level in mathematics, it's very, very possible and simple. We move on to measure of central location. We want to find one value that can represent the whole data set, either by finding the mean, the median, and the mode. Now you are required to know how to calculate the mean, the median, and the mode for both group data and ungrouped data. Now the way you calculate for group data is not the same as for ungrouped. Okay, let's look at a quick example on how to find the mean. You also need to know how to define them, as defined there. It's only the median that I want to stress. You always say median is the middle value or the middle number. If you just say that, then it's wrong, because we are not talking about when the data set is arranged. It's only in the middle when the data set is arranged. If it's not arranged, then that cannot be the median. Okay, now we move on to grouped data. Some of these things you can, if you do not understand them, you can find the videos that I've presented before in my earlier presentations in the following modules. You can look at this you can look at these videos, or you can watch the videos on those subjects. Those are the subject codes. You can find some things that are similar to you. All these subjects are more mathematical, and some of the topics are in both of them. So I might have touched on something that is important to you in some of those presentations. So just go through the presentation slides and see if you can understand them, but you can call for further assistance. Okay, all the formulas are defined there, and you can find them easily. You can calculate them, and then you get your marks. Okay, we move on to measure of dispersion, where we calculate the quartiles, the interquartile, the quartile deviation, the variance, and standard deviation. All these ones you need to know how to calculate for a group data set and for an ungrouped data set. Very important. You can Google, you can seek for help. If you want to pass, if you want to understand these things, you have to put more efforts on your own, so that you have to seek for help. But if you wait for help to come to you, it's not possible. You are doing distance. Okay, this is the formulas on how to calculate the positions of the quartiles. Very easy to follow. Just go through the slides so that you'll understand these things. And then this is how the question comes. Given the following score, calculate the mean, the median, the mode, the variance, and standard deviation. Let's look at the variance. For you to find the variance, first of all, you need to find the mean. Okay, how do we find the mean? The mean, you calculate you add everything together, divide by the total number of items. Like in A, 306 divided by 5, you get 61.2. Now you are going to subtract this 61.2 from each and every element in the data set. For the first one, you are going to say 52 minus 61.2. For the second one, 81 minus 61.2. For the third one, 64, and then it follows like that. At the end of the day, this is the results you are going to get in the second column. Now what you do to the second column is, you are going, in the third column, you are going to square all the values that you got in the second column. When you sum them up, then that is the top part of your the top part of your the formula and then divide it by n minus 1. You always have to divide by n minus 1 because we are always talking about a sample. Now in some books you get that the standard deviation or the variance is divided by n. That is when they are talking about the variance of a whole population. But when you are talking about a sample, then you have to divide by n minus 1. Let's look at straight line equation. This one I did not touch it in any of my presentations. Let's see how we find the elements of a straight line. You know, a straight line is what we always refer to as y is equals to mx plus c. This is a straight line. Okay, this is the dependent variable, this is the gradient, and that is the slope. How do we calculate the gradient, the slope, and the slope? Okay, to find the gradient, we use the simple formula that most of us will know or would have seen somewhere in grade 10, grade 8, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Now, if you are given two coordinates, you have to decide which one is x1, which one is x2, which one is y1, and which one is y2. Remember, the coordinates are always given in the form x, y. Okay, let's look at this example here. It says find the gradient and the y-intercept of a straight line passing through the point 2 and 3 and minus 3 and 4. It means there was a straight line that was drawn. Remember, this is your y-axis and this is your x-axis. There was a line that was drawn and they took a point there, for example, and they took another point there, and this is where, for example, they get 2 and 3, and this is where, for example, they got minus 3. No, for a minus it have to be somewhere there, minus 3 and 4. Now they want to find the gradient. The gradient is now the difference between that point and that point. Okay? All right. Now, what is the question? Find the gradient. To find the gradient, you use the formula m is equals to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Now you can decide. The first point is there and the second point is there. Whatever you decide, your answer will always be right. This you can say is x1 and this is y1, this is x2 and this is y2. Or you say this is x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2. Your answer will still be the same because the coordinates are in the same order. It will only be correct if you are not going to say x1 is here and and y1 is there. X1 and y1 have to be together. X2 and y2 also have to be together. Now if we use the ones on top there, then our y2 is equals to what? 4. y1 is equals to what? 2. And then our x2 is equals to what? X2 is minus 3, and then x1 is equals to, let's see, y2 4, and then y1 is 3. Okay, x2 is minus 3 and x1 is 2. Now if we solve this one, we are going to get 1 over negative 5. Okay, and that is our gradient, and this is what we also get, what is shown in the next slide. And then if you have found the gradient, then you can easily find the y-intercept. Okay, if you want to find the y-intercept, you just need to pick one point, one coordinate. Let's say you have y is equals to mx plus c. We got this to be equals to what? 1 over negative 5. Okay? Now, you need to pick one coordinate. Let's say we are taking the coordinate 2. We are taking the coordinate 2 and 3. So what is the x value here? The x value is 2 plus c. What is the y value there? Y value is 3. So if you multiply those two together, you are going to get minus 2 over 5 plus c. Then you have 3 there. Then you have to bring this on that side so that you add them together because it's negative on this side. Now the minus does not matter if it's down or up or in the middle. It's for the whole fraction. Now you will see that your answer at the end of the day, C will be equals to 3.4. Now if you are required to put it in a straight line form, then y is equals to your m is 1 over 5, which is negative x, plus 3.4. Now this is the straight line equation that you found. Okay, before we go to the end of the slides, I want to show you something. Let's quickly go back. It's on the how to find standard deviation of a grouped data set. Let's say you are given the group data set as shown on the screen. You are given class, and then you are given frequency, and then okay, that is all that you are given always in the test, in the exam, or in the assignments. Okay, 40 to 50, and then 50 to 60. Then you are given 3, 5, 9, 7, 6. How do we find the standard deviation and the variance of a group data set? We use the formula which is on the screen right now. Okay, forget about that part, and also this part that is showing here. That is the formula for variance. Is the sum of the frequencies multiplied by the midpoints that are squared, and then you divide it by the sum of the frequency, and then you minus the mean that is squared. So when you are given a table like this, you need to add another column. This column is called the midpoint column, and the midpoint are represented as xi. Now the frequency is the one that I'm referring as fi in the presentation. Now how do we find the midpoints? The midpoint is found by adding the lower bound and the upper bound, the lower limit and the upper limit, and you add them together, divide by 2. 10 plus 20 is 30, divide by 2, you are going to get 15. 20 plus 30, add them together, 50, divide by 2, it gives you 25. Those are the midpoints. Now what do we do next? You need to square the midpoints. You say 15 squared, 25 squared, and it goes on like that. After squaring them, you are going to multiply the frequencies and the midpoints that are squared. You are going to multiply this and that is what you are going to get in that column. At the end of the day, you will have to sum them up, get the total there, and that total is what you are going to put in the top part of the formula. What is this sum of frequency? Sum of frequency is just the total of the frequencies. You add 3, 5, and 9, and 7, and 6 together, and you get 30, and then you put 30 there. Then here you are going to put the value of the mean. How do we get the mean again? We find the mean by saying the sum of the frequencies multiplied by the midpoints divided by the sum of the frequencies. You are going to find all the midpoints, multiply each midpoint with the corresponding frequency, sum everything together, divide it by the sum of the frequency, which is 30, and that is what the answer is, what you are going to put there. But remember to square it. When you do that correctly, then you get a final answer. Now how do you get the standard deviation? The standard deviation, you are just going to put the answer of the variance into the square root, and that will give you what? Will give you the will give you the standard deviation. Okay, just remember the way you calculate for the ungrouped data is not the same as for the grouped data. You can see the formula for ungrouped data is not the same as for the grouped. You see on the screen, under D, variance is just the sum of x minus x bar to the power of 2 divided by n minus 1. This is not the same as the one that we used when the data set is grouped. And you can see that this, under this example in D, there's no classes. There's no classes. When you are talking about classes, you are talking about these intervals of saying 10 to less than 20, 20 to less than 30. That's why these two are two different things, and the way you calculate them is in a different way. Thank you very much. Remember, you can watch my other presentations online, okay, and the subject codes I have already shown to you. So go through those ones and make sure you get good marks in your assignment, and then you'll be able to understand them, and you'll do better in the exams. Thank you very much. We'll meet again next time.